I stood in the garage doorway, frozen. The fluorescent light above flickered, casting a stuttered glow over two massive trucks wedged side by side like they belonged there. My Camaro, normally resting like a sleeping tiger beneath a tarp, was nowhere in sight, replaced by rust-smeared utility vehicles and a pink sticky note stuck to the breaker box. It read, "Hope it's okay, sweetie. My contractor needed a spot. Teamwork makes the dream work. Karen, 2 hearts." My pulse tapped behind my eyes like a metronome of disbelief. This wasn't just trespassing. It was an invasion. And the worst part? I wasn't even surprised. After the year I'd had, divorce papers finalized on a Tuesday, Hart quietly disassembled by Friday, and a rental apartment that still smelled like cinnamon candles Maria used to hoard, it almost felt on brand that someone like Karen would waltz into my last safe space and claim it like a birthday prize. The garage technically still belonged to my ex-wife, but the $200 I paid monthly to store my tools and work on my '69 Camaro gave me more than access. It gave me sanity. That car was the only thing left that made sense anymore. I stared at the trucks like they might dissolve if I blinked hard enough. They didn't. Instead, I caught the faint scent of motor oil and lavender, the strange mix of grit and memory that clung to this space. I'd spent months here, grease under my nails, socket wrench in hand, pretending I wasn't lonely. Pretending rebuilding a car meant I was rebuilding myself. And now someone had parked over that, literally. I stepped back onto the driveway, the autumn air biting at my throat. Across the street, Mrs. Park stood beside her garden, pruning hydrangeas like she was conducting surgery. She looked up and nodded once. "She do it to you too?" she called, her accent sharp but kind. I didn't answer. Just walked slowly back to my car parked 2 blocks away because Karen's fleet had blocked the drive, too. Later that night, I sat in my apartment, the city outside murmuring in neon and traffic. I held the pink note like it might confess something if I stared long enough. My phone sat beside me, screen blank. I tried calling the number she left. Straight to voicemail. Her outgoing message sounded like bubblegum and self-righteousness. "Hi there. If you're calling about a community improvement matter, I'm probably helping our HOA be its best self. Leave a message with positive vibes." I didn't leave a message. I poured myself a glass of bourbon instead and tried to calm the pressure behind my eyes. It wasn't about the trucks. It was about control. About how people like Karen glide through life without asking, without apologizing, because the world never made them believe they should. And people like me, people who avoid conflict, who fold their anger into politeness, get left holding notes like this. Teamwork makes the dream work. What dream? One where I vanish quietly from the things I've built. The next morning, I showed up early, hoping the trucks were gone. They weren't. There was a new note taped over mine. Longer, smugger, still pink, still loopy handwriting, now with underlined words like community trust and shared values. This time, I didn't call her. I called Maria, and that's when everything changed. Because Maria wasn't just my ex-wife. She was also the sheriff. And Karen had no idea what storm she'd just summoned. I hadn't spoken to Maria in 3 months. Not since the day I handed her the keys and walked out of what used to be her home. Our marriage ended not with a fight, but with a long silence that stretched across too many dinners and bled into separate lives. But when her voice came through the phone, calm and clipped in that familiar on-duty tone, something shifted. "You said trucks are blocking the garage?" she asked. "Yeah, 2 of them. Big ones. Work trucks, maybe contractor stuff." And a new note. Same woman. Calls herself Karen. Maria paused. "Karen, the one who's been leaving me voicemails?" I blinked. "She's been calling you?" "She's left 6 messages in the last week, demanding we arrest a dangerous male renter for threatening community safety." She exhaled sharply. Guess I know who she meant now. The irony landed like a punchline. I was the threat? Karen had invaded my space, faked her HOA authority, and I was the one getting flagged as dangerous? Maria didn't sound surprised. "I've been meaning to check it out. You want me to drive over and take a look?" I hesitated. We'd buried so much beneath the surface of civil divorce. Her walking through the mess I couldn't fix felt like unsealing a wound. But this wasn't about us anymore. Not entirely. Yeah, I said. If you're willing. On my lunch break. Noon. Don't let her bait you in the meantime. I didn't plan to, but that didn't mean Karen wouldn't try. At 9:43 a.m., a white Mercedes SUV pulled into the driveway like it had diplomatic immunity. Karen stepped out wearing an outfit that looked more country club than contractor. Oversized sunglasses, tight pastel joggers, and a phone glued to one hand like a badge of power. She didn't knock. She didn't look at me, standing 3 feet away on the sidewalk. She taped another note to my apartment door, this one printed on faux letterhead that read Maplewood Estates HOA, and walked back to her car like she'd blessed me with her presence. I snatched the paper before it fluttered off. Violation notice. You are hereby fined $150 for disruptive behavior, inappropriate use of community space, and failure to adhere to agreed-upon neighborhood cooperation guidelines. No signature. No contact info. Just the implication that some faceless authority had passed judgment on me and found me unneighborly. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I turned to see Mrs. Park once again trimming her hydrangeas. She raised one eyebrow. She did it again, she asked without looking up. I nodded. Maybe this time you stop being polite, she said and walked back inside. By noon, I'd printed out HOA bylaws from the county's website, highlighted half the clauses, and made a small stack of documentation. I knew she was bluffing, but knowing and proving are two very different things. When Maria pulled into the lot in her sheriff's SUV, Karen emerged like a stage actor hitting her mark. Her sunglasses were gone now, her face scrubbed of makeup, hair tied up in a loose bun meant to communicate innocence. She made a beeline for Maria, her voice trembling just loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Thank God you're here. I was starting to fear for my safety. I watched from behind the curtain, stomach in knots. Maria stayed perfectly neutral. Let's talk inside. I need to take your statement. But you'll need to arrest him. He's volatile. He left threatening notes. I have witnesses. Maria didn't flinch. Do you have written permission to use the garage? Karen blinked. What? It's for community use. I'm authorized by HOA emergency protocols. Maria held up a hand. Karen, that garage belongs to me. You're trespassing, and I'd like you to move your vehicles. Now, Karen's jaw twitched. Her face twisted, a dozen arguments dying in her throat. That was the moment everything changed. Not just for Karen, but for me too. Because for the first time in months, I realized I wasn't powerless. Karen didn't move her trucks that day. She exploded. Not physically, but you could feel it like a quiet detonation under her skin. When Maria told her to remove the vehicles or face trespassing charges, Karen's calm cracked like brittle ice. Her voice, once syrupy and measured, grew jagged. You're abusing your authority, she barked. This is harassment. Maria remained still, her hand resting on her utility belt, but nowhere near the cuffs. You've been warned. Any further violations will be documented accordingly. Karen turned, stormed back to her SUV, and peeled out of the driveway like she was escaping a war zone. Tires screeched. Mrs. Park raised an eyebrow again from behind her living room window. Sipping tea like this was her favorite episode of a soap opera. I should have felt victorious. But instead, I felt shaken, because Karen's meltdown wasn't the end. It was the beginning. By nightfall, my phone was blowing up. Voicemails, texts, emails I hadn't subscribed to. My name, my real name, had somehow made its way onto a local Facebook group called Maplewood Neighbors United. There were posts, public ones. Sheriff's ex-husband using law enforcement to silence concerned residents. Dangerous renter disrupts peaceful community. Proof that this garage incident is part of a broader harassment campaign. Each post came from the same account. Karen.m.HOA. The comments were mixed. Some questioned her credibility. Others, neighbors I'd never spoken to, seemed to believe her. One woman replied, "Is this the guy with the black car? I thought he looked sketchy." I scrolled and scrolled, my stomach turning with each swipe. There's something particularly brutal about watching your life reframed by a stranger, someone turning your silence into guilt, your privacy into proof. It hit me then. This wasn't just a Karen problem. This was a me problem, too. because I let her shape the narrative. While I'd been quiet, civil, composed, she'd been loud, certain, and wrong. And people were listening to her. At 11:47 p.m., a knock startled me. I grabbed my phone, uncertain, peered through the peephole. It was a teenager. Hoodie, backpack slung low, eyes tired but familiar. Tyler, garanisson. I opened the door, cautious. He didn't wait for an invitation. I need to show you something, he said. He pulled a tablet from his bag and tapped through folders. I've been filming her for a while now. The rants, the threats, what she says to people when she thinks no one's watching. He handed it over. The first video was shaky, a phone camera from behind a half-closed door. Karen, pacing in her living room, yelling into her phone, "No one's going to stop me. I am the HOA. If they think I'll back down, they're wrong. I'll bury them with violations." Another clip, Karen forging a document on her computer. Another, threatening an elderly couple about unauthorized gnome decorations. Another, bragging about finally teaching that sheriffs tramp a lesson. I looked up. "Why are you showing me this?" Tyler's eyes filled with something heavier than sadness. "Because I'm done lying for her." He sat on my couch, head in hands. "She used to be normal, or at least better, before the divorce, before Dad left. Now she's obsessed with control, with pretending everything's fine when it's not." His voice cracked. "And I'm tired of being her cover story." I felt something shift in the room, something bigger than the garage, bigger than the fines, the notes, the lies. This wasn't about property anymore. It was about truth. Tyler left that night with a promise. He would post the videos if Karen didn't back down. And I knew, from the way he said it, that he meant it, not out of spite, but survival, and maybe redemption, for both of us. By the end of the week, Karen was unraveling and taking the neighborhood down with her. First came the new flyers, dozens of them, taped to lampposts, mailboxes, even my apartment door. "Attention, dangerous renter alert. This individual is interfering with community cohesion, leveraging law enforcement for personal gain, and harassing the HOA. Stay vigilant." My photo was printed beside the headline, cropped from an old Facebook picture, mid-blink, like I was already guilty of something. I stood on the curb holding one of the flyers in my hands while neighbors walked past with tight-lipped glances, some avoiding my eyes entirely. "Is it true?" one woman finally asked. "Are you really trying to take over the HOA?" I wanted to scream, or at least laugh, but neither would have helped. I just said no. I just want my garage back. But it wasn't about the garage anymore. It hadn't been for days. Maria called later that afternoon. "She just filed a harassment claim with the sheriff's department," she said. "Accused you of stalking. She's also saying I abused my position to protect you." "You're kidding." "I wish I were." A silence stretched between us, thick with exhaustion. Then Maria added, "This isn't about you. Not really. People like Karen, they need control. When they lose it, they burn everything down." It echoed what Tyler had said, and what I was beginning to understand. Karen wasn't just unhinged. She was drowning in her own delusion. And she would take down anyone who tried to stop her from staying afloat. Even her son. Tyler's first post dropped that night. A 2-minute video, grainy footage of Karen ranting in their kitchen about purging weak-willed neighbors and shaming violators into compliance. It hit social media like a lightning strike. The caption, "My mom isn't the HOA president. She's just good at pretending." Within an hour, the video had over 10,000 views. By morning, the comment section was a flood of support and revelations. Dozens of neighbors, both past and present, came forward. "She charged me $200 for unauthorized wind chimes. I just paid it to make her go away. Karen fined me for parking my bike on the porch. I am shidem jishonte kyonte. She told me she'd get me evicted if I didn't remove my daughter's swing." Mrs. Park sent me a message with a single sentence. "Time to bring it all out." We met that evening in her backyard. There were 27 people gathered, folding chairs spread across the lawn under strings of bulb lights. Most of them I'd never spoken to before. Faces once blurred by routine, now sharpened by shared frustration. Mrs. Park stood near a patio table, a thick binder in hand. "She's been doing this since she arrived," she said. "Falsifying violations." making up rules, targeting anyone who wouldn't push back. She opened the binder. Inside were photos, screenshots, voice recordings, even a hand-drawn map of Karen's surveillance routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 7 a.m. sharp, walking the neighborhood with her phone camera out. She told me I was a disgrace because I planted tomatoes in my front yard, a retired veteran said quietly. She told my daughter not to ride her scooter because it ruined the aesthetic, another added. Everyone had a Karen story, but no one had ever said them out loud. Until now. Then came a knock on the back gate. Karen. She entered the yard like she was the guest of honor at her own intervention. Chin high, expression brittle. So this is the secret meeting, she spat. Plotting to dismantle our HOA from the inside, like traitors. Her eyes swept across the group. You're all going to regret this. But something was different. No one flinched. No one turned away. And I finally stepped forward. Karen, I said, voice steady. No one made you the president. There was no election. No fidescession. Just you, making the rules and pretending it was for the community. She scoffed. You think anyone cares what you say? You're a renter. You're nothing. That's when Tyler appeared behind her. Phone in hand. Live. Hey, Mom, he said. Everyone's watching. Her face drained. She turned, eyes wide, mouth opening as if to argue. But the words didn't come. Because for the first time in this entire story, Karen realized she didn't control the room anymore. The backyard was silent. Not the awkward kind, this was the heavy kind. The kind of silence that sits in your chest, demanding something to change. Karen's face twitched. She wasn't built for this kind of moment. She thrived in whispers, in scattered neighbors, in isolation. But now everyone was here, names with faces, faces with stories, and all of them staring directly at her. And her son. Tyler didn't lower the phone. He didn't break eye contact. His live stream ticked in the corner of the screen. Thousands watching. Mom, he said, voice low but steady. Just tell the truth. For once. Karen's lip curled. Turn that thing off. No, Tyler, I swear to God. You swore a lot of things, he cut in, and something in his voice broke her rhythm. You swore you paid the mortgage. You swore you didn't open a credit card in my name. You swore this community needed you. He looked down for a second, then back up. But it was always about you needing to feel important. Karen's mouth opened, but there were no words, just panic, barely veiled behind a practiced expression of moral outrage. She turned to the crowd, scanning for a sympathetic face. She found none. Mrs. Park stepped forward, the thick binder clutched against her chest. We have documentation, Karen. Records, emails, fake fines, forged HOA documents with your handwriting on them. This ends tonight. Karen laughed. It was hollow, desperate. You're all just jealous. You need someone to blame for your pathetic little lives. So you pick me. No, I said, stepping in. We're holding you accountable. That's different. Her gaze flicked to me like she'd only just remembered I was part of this. You started this. You in your broken little car. I took a breath. You parked your power trip in the wrong garage. The words hung in the air. And then Karen snapped. She lunged toward Tyler's phone, hands out like claws. Give it to me. He didn't move. He didn't flinch. Instead, Mrs. Park stepped between them, short, wiry, and absolutely unshakable. Karen collided with her like a wave hitting rock. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't even dramatic. Karen stumbled back, disoriented by the resistance. You don't get to control him anymore, Mrs. Park said, voice like ice cracking. Tyler stepped around them, still filming, eyes never leaving his mother. This is what it's like, he said softly, when people stop being afraid of you. Karen blinked. For a moment, she looked small, not in the literal sense. Small in spirit, diminished. The costume of power stripped away, leaving a woman who had built her identity on fear and had just run out of places to hide. She turned and stormed out the gate, slamming it behind her so hard it rattled the hinges. The silence that followed felt seismic. Then someone clapped. It was the veteran, Mr. Lorne, who Karen had fined for wind chimes. The sound wasn't loud, but others joined in, awkward at first, then stronger. Not a celebration, not even mockery. It was relief and grief. For time lost, for fear tolerated, for community fractured. But mostly it was release. Later that night, Tyler and I sat on the curb outside my garage. The trucks were gone. For the first time in a week, the driveway was clear. Tyler leaned back, his hoodie pulled low over his forehead. "I didn't think I'd be able to do that," he said. "You did more than that," I replied. "You cracked something open. For all of us." He nodded slowly. I didn't want to hate her. I still don't. I know." We sat in silence for a while. Not the heavy kind this time. The peaceful kind. Inside the garage, my Camaro waited, half-assembled, rusted in places, polished in others. Still a work in progress. But tonight, it didn't look broken. It looked ready. 2 weeks later, the garage was officially mine. Maria had drawn up a long-overdue lease agreement, $1 per year, just to make it legal, and handed it to me with a crooked smile. "Consider it a symbolic payment for surviving suburban warfare," she said. We stood in the driveway, sunlight pooling over the hood of the Camaro. Tyler leaned against the open door, fiddling with his camera, documenting what he called the place it all turned around. Because it had, not just for him, or me, but for everyone. Karen didn't disappear overnight, but the illusion of her power did. The community voted unanimously to dissolve the fake HOA she'd weaponized. A formal investigation uncovered forged documents, misused funds, and a long trail of fabricated violations. Several residents filed civil claims. But the most devastating blow wasn't legal. It was irrelevance. She became the woman people crossed the street to avoid. The one whispered about in grocery store aisles. The one whose name triggered laughter, not fear. Eventually, she moved out. Quietly. No grand finale. No drama. Just a U-Haul in the night and a house left behind, empty and stripped of the weight she tried to build her identity around. Mrs. Park texted me the next morning. "The Queen has abdicated." Tyler stayed with his dad. Started therapy. Started healing. His videos kept gaining traction. Not because they were scandalous, but because they were honest. Raw glimpses into the quiet damage caused by control, manipulation, and fear disguised as leadership. He started a series called Breaking the Script, helping teens tell their stories through film. His voice was shaky at first, then steady, then powerful. And one night, during a local screening of his first short film, he said something I'll never forget. Sometimes the villain in your story isn't a stranger. Sometimes it's the person who taught you how to smile in public while falling apart in private. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you meet people who show you how to rewrite it all. Maria got promoted. Chief deputy now. Her photos on the department wall, standing in uniform, expression fierce but kind. We talk often now. Not like exes circling a wound, but like two people who finally understand where the cracks were and what it took to stop falling through them. We're not getting back together. And that's okay. What we have now is cleaner, lighter, friendship with guardrails, respect without tension. Occasionally, she'll drop by with groceries or ask about the Camaro. Sometimes we just sit in silence and let the past breathe between us. It no longer hurts. That's enough. The community changed too. People waved more, talked more, asked each other how they were doing, and waited for real answers. Mrs. Park turned her binder into a PDF and uploaded it online as a free resource. Neighborhood Watch 2.0, the Karen Protocol. It went viral. We started a community newsletter, held a real election for an HOA, this time with actual candidates and ballots. We chose collaboration over control, empathy over enforcement. The first meeting opened with a quote Tyler printed on the front page of the agenda. "You don't protect a neighborhood by intimidating it. You protect it by standing up for each other." As for me, I finished restoring the Camaro. Took on the open road for the first time one crisp Sunday morning. Radio off, windows down, the kind of silence that sings. Each gear shift felt like shedding a layer I no longer needed. Grief, guilt, insecurity, gone with the wind. That car had once been my therapy, my way of pretending I was in control. Now, it's my reminder that rebuilding isn't about control at all. It's about care, about paying attention, getting your hands dirty, taking something broken and choosing every day to believe it's still worth fixing. I don't think Karen ever really understood that, but the rest of us do now. And sometimes, when I walk past a garage, I don't just see steel and rubber and old dreams welded back together. I see a beginning, a place where silence ended, where fear collapsed, where a quiet man remembered he could be loud, where a kid stopped apologizing for his mother's storms and started chasing his own light. The garage still smells like oil and ghosts, but it's mine now. And more than that, it's ours.